This time we will bring a new story entitled The Blade of Evolution. They say this manhwa is similar to solo leveling. At the beginning of the story, we are shown a city. Most of the residents in that city work as hunters. As you know, hunters' job is to clear the dungeon, which is a gathering place for monsters. Each dungeon has its own level. The higher the level, the stronger the monsters that hunters have to face. Main character this time is a man named Makasi. Nakasi is a weak hunter. Because he is so weak, he is always a burden for other hunters who are at a party with him. Therefore, none of the parties wanted to invite him to work together. Suddenly, two of his friends came up to him. The two friends were his contemporaries who had just been promoted to a level up. They had come there to get Makasi to join together to clear the dungeon. However, Makasi said that his skill was very low. He was worried that he would only become a burden to his friends, but his two friends did not care how weak he was. They will still take it. They arrived at the outskirts of the city, the place where the normal level dungeon door opened. The dungeon has a capacity of 10 people, however, it is not further known what is inside the dungeon. When they were in there, it was indeed easy for them to defeat the monsters. Even now, only one monster was left alive. The three of them then attacked the monster together. However, all attacks can be blocked and have no effect on the monster at all. They then develop a strategy and plan to tie it up first. Makasi's partner then took out his technique, as well as trying to bind the monsters. When the monsters are tied up, this is the perfect time for them to launch an attack. The man who is the leader of the team will then use his new technique to attack the monster. The attack was so great. With just one attack, the monster in front of them was decapitated. Seeing that his close friend had become a strong hunter, Makasi was envious of him. He says, "When did I have such power? Every time you defeat a boss monster in the dungeon, weapons and mana crystals will emerge from that monster." The man then took the mana crystal that came out of the monster earlier. Then he gave his sword to Makasi so Makasi could upgrade his strength. I don't know if he meant to be arrogant or what. For sure he seems like a good friend. Makasi thanked his colleague. When they thought that was done, they suddenly heard the sound of a loud cloud from a monster. It seemed they were currently encountering a hidden boss. The monster looked so terrible. That monster didn't seem like an ordinary monster. From its appearance, one could already tell that it was very strong. Hidden bosses had never been heard of appearing in normal level dungeons. Hidden bosses are usually in high dungeons, and according to the information circulating, they are very strong, but they try to calm down because there are many hunters there. Just in case they would test the strength of the monster first. As the three of them were planning, and another hunter then approached them. As well as calling them timid hunters, there was nothing to fear from bosses hidden in normal dungeons. He activated his jutsu called Seed of God. It seemed he wasn't an outstanding hunter either. Then the hunter came forward with his strength and weapons. Obviously, the party leader was trying to restrain him, because fighting hidden boss monsters weren't as easy as they say. However, the hunter did not listen to his friend's warning. He kept advancing forward, attacking the monster. The boss monster didn't move at all, he just looked up and smiled. The hunter's attack had almost hit the monster. This is where the action of the monster begins. He creates the weapon in his hand, as well as a very strong wind. Surprisingly, that's a terrible move. Hunters who came to attack him died instantly. Even certain plants were chopped into pieces as if they were mutilated in an instant. All the party mates who saw what happened were shocked at how terrible the monster was. The party leader then asks others for the skill of the monster. He used a technique called Force's Kill to check. How shocked after knowing the monster's attributes, he said that they would all die. He told everyone that the monster was 10 times stronger than any normal boss. The chief tried to appease his comrades by saying, "There's only one monster after all. If we work together, then we will have a chance to defeat him." The leader then said all the hunters are of the attack type, then came forward and attacked the monster. But the monster again issued his skill, which was able to blow away hunters who tried to approach him. Range type hunters also continued to launch their attacks, firing their skills together. And the skill hit the monster. Finally, thanks to it, it gives effect the monster. It was said that currently, the health of the hidden boss monster had fallen by 50%. This means that his lifespan has been reduced. Knowing this, everyone continuously launched attacks on the monster. Surprisingly, the attack on the monster had no effect at all, and he was getting annoyed with the hunter who had attacked him. Next, the boss monster issues a special skill called Madness Skill. Madness Skill is a special recovery technique that is owned by certain monsters, which will be active when the state health decreases to a certain limit, so that his life state will increase. The chief was probably about to launch his ultimate attack. He had prepared for this attack long ago and had mustered up his strength to its fullest. In this attack, the support type hunter also doesn't stay silent and helps attack him from here. Long story short, after a fierce battle, the head arrives before the monster and will cut off his head. It seems that the monster has been defeated by the chief. All the hunters then looked very happy because they had successfully completed the dungeon mission. But who would have thought that the monster was still rising and he wasn't dead yet? This time the monster started to attack and its main target was the observation-type female hunter. Unexpectedly the monster beheaded him. Everyone who saw this incident was just stunned and shocked to see it. The chairman then ordered everyone to run from there, but very quickly the monster moved. By this time the monster was behind the female hunter. Makasi's partner and the woman were killed in one hit. Seeing that his close friend had been killed, they couldn't do anything. The monster then continues its movement and it will attack the remaining hunters. With a very fast technique and style, the monster managed to kill the hunters who were there one by one. The party leader, who was so emotional seeing his comrades being killed, tried to attack the monster. However, he was instead hit by an attack and all of them died. And now only one person is still alive, none other than Makasi. Makasi then looked down and started to give up on his current situation. He says, "How could this happen to me?" Even felt belittled by the monster for being the last one to be killed. Thanks again for remembering the words of people who are party members, because they are only a burden for other hunter members. But on the other hand, two of his close friends appear in his hallucinations. It wasn't long before his hallucinations were that his two close friends gave him encouragement and motivation. His colleague says that Makasi is not a loser, stand up and take that sword, you can do it. Makasi then takes his sword and he will try to attack the monster so it doesn't die in vain. He then moved toward the monster and attacked the monster. He intended to kill the monster and chose to die with the monster. Makasi managed to stick the sword in the monster's chest and he flowed through the sword with the magic power he had. The attack was able to make the monster so painful, it seemed that the sword hit its vital point. The monster then attacked Makasi and as a result, Makasi was injured. The monster is then shown to have been defeated and destroyed by Makasi's attack. Makasi then woke up somewhere. He thought was dead, but he was still wearing clothes. Suddenly a Windows status appears above it containing congratulations for completing and defeating the final boss in the normal dungeon. At that time Makasi was given a gift in the form of a sword called the Blade of Evolution. With the success and the gift of a sword, Makasi will begin to increase his power level in the hunter world. Makasi, who just woke up from sleep, had a bad dream. In his dream, he saw the hidden boss monster that had killed his comrades back then take the heart of his friend and eat it. Every time Makasi slept he always dreamed about the incident, even though it had been 2 weeks, but he still clearly saw the horrific scene unfolding before his eyes. Although the guild didn't investigate the case, rumors of the terrible incident had spread among the hunters and made Makasi so famous, because he was the only hunter who survived the incident. But wait, Makasi is famous not because of his success in surviving, but since that incident, people have considered Makasi as a cursed healer, who called Makasi not a worthy partner, but a trash hunter who only became a burden for the team. Because of this rumor, Makasi thought that he was not worthy of being with his friends. Thanks, I think it's worth it alone. Makasi opened his fridge and it looked like it was last drink of water, so he had to go out after this to find something to drink. Thanks, then getting ready to go out, he only had one shirt when he came out. He didn't want people to see and recognize him. Because Makasi was a child from a poor family, he didn't have many decent clothes to wear. Upon arriving at a convenience store, Makasi heard people talking about the massacre. The two of them showed off their conversation as well by saying that the healer was extremely weak. Even if I met him, I could easily kill him. Hearing people talk about what happened to him, Makasi was still silent and didn't care what people said. The next day Makasi left the house. He was frustrated with his career as a hunter because he would not be able to join the team to make money. He doesn't even have a friend. Then Makasi planned to go into the one-person dungeon so that he could enter alone. Even though he was alone, he arrived at the gate of the dungeon called the Dungeon's Breath. This is a special dungeon for novice hunters to improve their skills. The level of difficulty is almost non-existent, so the payment that will be obtained is also very small. But at least for Makasi, the meager payment would at least save him from starvation. When Makasi walked into the dungeon, 2 hunters recognized him. They just watched and laughed at Makasi, who entered the dungeon alone. Makasi was seen to have entered the Breath dungeon. Makasi was said to have met the conditions, so the evolution dungeon mode had been activated. When he was inside, he didn't know what evaluation dungeon was. Inside the dungeon was filled with a thick bloody fog. Makasi felt his sword was currently reacting with the mist. He then continued his journey and was curious about what really happened. He then accepts a mission there, which is the mission is to get rid of 100 earth elements. Makasi was so surprised by the mission he had so hard to get, he thought he would only get rid of 3 of them. The blood mist that had enveloped the place slowly began to dissipate. However, something appeared from the ground. That's bad news for Makasi. Apparently, that's what the earth element means. The monsters that emerged from the underground were countless in number. Not only that, the size of the monsters was enormous. The monster's attack power was also extremely strong. But his movements were still sluggish in Makasi's eyes. It seems that this mission is not as easy as Makasi predicted. Then you can see the very big monster that will be faced this time. Since this is a beginner's dungeon, the monsters that appear should be weak monsters, not something like this. What else can Makasi have to finish his mission? Then Makasi tried to attack the monster with his healer powers. He wanted to measure how strong his current magic power was. They seem to be clashing punches and their strength looks balanced. Makasi would then test the power of his evolution sword. By the time Makasi was ready with his sword, the monster had come at him with a powerful punch. However, Makasi slashed the monster first with fantastic power. Makasi was able to destroy the monster with just one strike. Makasi, who had managed to defeat one giant monster easily, began to realize the strength he currently had. He felt that this time was much stronger than before. The other monsters had also moved towards Makasi. There was no time for Makasi to sigh, though only for a moment. Makasi then activated his healer skill and increased his strength and speed. Makasi was ready to fight countless monsters. With immense strength and increased speed, Makasi easily defeated the stone monsters one by one. This is the increase in strength that Makasi has had after the massacre of the party last week. A hunter who used to be the weakest even now is considered trash. Look now, he has evolved into a very strong hunter. The more monsters that Makasi defeats, the higher the level of strength they receive. Until finally Makasi faced the last monster. He then jumped and slashed at the monster. Finally, the novice mission of this small test has been completed, and Makasi will get the reward after completing the mission. Makasi looked exhausted. He didn't expect that this mission would be so tiring for him. It turns out that the dungeon mission doesn't stop there. The system said that Makasi would get a second mission, which was to defeat 100 water monsters. Before the mission started, Makasi received a reward for the previous task. It was an earth essence item that had never been heard of before. What's the use of that thing? The stone is the crystal that is produced from the power of the earth. The thing's ability is to combine with weapons, but what effect it will actually have is unknown. Thanks, just keep thinking about that, because now he will be faced with a second mission. Suddenly there appeared a light that was so dazzling, and surprisingly the climate there changed to a snow climate. Snow and water elements, maybe this is the continuation of the mission. From above the sky then descended blue blocks that looked like giant ice cubes that rained down on the place. When it got under the blocks, it then turned into a snow monster, even though the monster wasn't made of ordinary water elements. But it seems that the monsters have also been updated, so they are different from usual. Makasi then moved to attack the monster with his sword. With his movement, Makasi managed to launch several attacks, but Makasi's attack had no effect on the monster. Makasi then tried to attack the monster again, and he wanted to know why the monster didn't take any damage when it took his attack. After observing the monster closely, it turned out that the snow monster this time had the ability to quickly regenerate, so that after being attacked by the monster it recovered as before, as if Makasi's attack had no effect on it at all. Ice elemental beasts not only possessed extremely strong defensive power like the previous rock monsters, but it also has recovery abilities similar to the water element. Understanding the situation, Makasi began to think that he would die here because his attacks couldn't even scratch the monster. Suddenly the dungeon system provides information that currently the conditions for unifying the Earth's essence with the weapon have been fulfilled. Makasi then tried to combine the rewards received when completing the previous mission with his sword. When the unification has been completed, Makasi's sword has a unique skill. When attacking, Makasi's sword will give an effect that helps reduce the enemy's speed by 50% and prevents the regeneration effect for 3 seconds. After knowing the progress of his weapon, Makasi finally had the chance to win the battle. Makasi then advanced to attack the nearby ice monsters, and sure enough, the attack this time managed to make the monster scratch. When the monster started to turn to stone, he then slashed the monster until it was decapitated. Finally, Makasi has found a way to defeat the monsters. He then continued to attack the monsters that were still there. With its fast movement, one by one, the monsters are defeated easily. In the end, all the monsters have been defeated by him. However, according to the current system information, there is still one monster left that hasn't been defeated. However, Makasi has not seen any more monsters there. Surprisingly, the ice elements of the destroyed monsters then merged into a Snow Queen monster. Well, that's all for the first part. If you like the plot we made, don't forget to subscribe to this channel.